Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you on this October 24th, 2025. I got all of your stories for your rush hour ride to work. Can you believe we made it to Friday, the week before Halloween? Well, I got a sugar high for you of the pop culture and political variety. So let's dig in. On this episode, we've got Popcorn Planet speaking out through the court system in a response to Blake Lively. It appears as though Blake Lively wants to know what the heck's going to be in his documentary, and boy, do we have the Streisand in full effect. We'll get into that and a little bit more on Blake's evidence or lack thereof with her discovery coming to a close. Also, Gavin Newsom, really, he is just winning on social media. Will share the new knee pads he's selling, or I should say have sold out, and why. After that, we'll get into the ballroom budget, of course, ballroom we're all going to be invited to as taxpayers, right? The People's House, the People's Dancing with the Stars live from the White House. The ballroom has gone up in price, so we'll get into that. A little bit more on the government shutdown, as it's another pay period where about 1 million government employees are not being paid. Lots to get into, all these stories and more. It starts right now on The Rush. Well, it's been a pretty wild week for Blake Lively as she filed court documents essentially saying the reason she couldn't find more evidence to support her claims is because all of the text messages and audio messages were deleted, which is what the plan was going to be all along, which might be true. But I don't think that really holds up in court to say, hey, Your Honor, the dog ate my homework. That's why I couldn't do it. It's gone. The dog ate it. And that's what Blake's kind of argument is, which is interesting as people are now pulling up quotes made to E! News from Blake's attorney. There is an overwhelming amount of evidence documenting the smear campaign. And again, the evidence is on Blake's side that there was a smear campaign, but there's no evidence that a smear campaign actually happened. Does that make sense? It probably doesn't, but that's the argument she's making. Well, it's a tough day, not just for Blake Lively's camp, but also the author, Colleen Hoover, who wrote It Ends With Us. Regretting You review. Allison Williams and Dave Franco star in the movie that could end the Colleen Hoover adaptation craze. This is not a good article on The Hollywood Reporter for Colleen Hoover. I'll just share the first paragraph. They said, last year I seriously considered putting Justin Baldoni's It Ends With Us on my best movies of the year list. The film takes a poorly written novel by mega author Colleen Hoover and turns it into persuasive, often lovely melodrama. Its world is finely wrought. Its lead performance from producer Blake Lively is soulful and surprising. It's a good movie, scandal be damned. Which is why I had perhaps higher than average hopes for the follow-up Hoover adaptation, Regretting You. And then kind of goes into why it didn't live up to those expectations. But hey, you can't win them all, right, folks? And listen, for those that were saying, oh, It Ends With Us was a bad movie, blah, blah, blah. Listen, I watched it. And I thought it was good. I thought Baldoni and Blake Lively had tremendously good chemistry. Maybe the chemistry was so good she might have fallen in love with him. Who the hell knows? Either way, the drama continues as we've got right here the court document filed by Popcorn Planet. It's his request for judicial notice. Now, I could try to fumble through exactly what was said here, but I asked ChatGPT, which I know doesn't do it perfectly, but we sure as hell know I don't either. Popcorn Planet, which is our friend Andy, is a non-party in the main lawsuit, Blake Lively versus Wayfair. Lively issued a subpoena demanding materials from him, likely involving communications or documents tied to Andy and others. Popcorn Planet filed a motion to quash that subpoena, asking the court to throw it out. This request for judicial notice supports that motion. So basically, Andy's asking the court to throw out this subpoena that she has against him, saying, you've got all the evidence you're going to get from the other side. That means you don't need anything from me. And, it's probably a pretty obvious motion for him to file here. The comments kind of support the theory that she wants to kind of look into what they might possibly be releasing. And look, you can understand that she wants to know what's going to be in this documentary, but at the same time, does it have any relevance to her fight with Baldoni? Someone said this, I'm assuming since Andy has been advised to hold off on the documentary until the subpoena issue is resolved, I'm thinking this was her way to keep it from being released. In my opinion, the earlier it was released, the more likely people would forget about it. If it's released in 2026, the same year the trial is held, wouldn't it make the documentary more of a hot topic in anticipation of the trial? So again, we'll have to see, what becomes of the documentary. I was asked to be in it, but wasn't in the right place at the right time to be able to make that happen. But I'm sure he'll do a good job with it. Now, in stories adjacent to Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, there's been like a ecosystem that sort of emerged from covering this very big trial this year. I remember when I started to cover it thinking, oh, this is going to be big. I remember saying, honey, I'm going to have a pretty busy weekend as I read through these court documents, and my channel took off in different ways. Whenever there's a new hot court case, there's always a new bump, whether it's Bachelor, Clayton Echard, we've covered Amber Heard v. Johnny Depp. There's always something Candace Owens versus the Macrones, covering that. There's always a bump of new people curious to talk about these things online. Well, here's our friend Katie without a crystal ball. She's talking about this sort of side story that I haven't really jumped too much into regarding some infighting with content creators. Yeah, she posted this on Instagram. A lot of creators on social media, and I mean many creators, are now demanding that people not speak about Candace Owens. They are demanding that followers unfollow anyone who doesn't publicly denounce her. Let me be clear, gatekeeping is the opposite of freedom of speech. I will not live in a world where I dictate who anyone should or should not follow, and I will not dogpile on someone just because everyone else is. I've been dogpiled. I've been smeared. It's horrible. I want to live in a society where people can hold different views and still coexist. I refuse to live in an echo chamber. Katie Joy. Now, my sort of way I like to analyze people and see who I F with and who I don't F with is really what their character's all about. Not necessarily, the words that they're saying, but how they kind of live their daily lives. And, Katie here, without a crystal ball, she's been one to, blast others and really stick up for herself in covering some of these hot topic issues. And I fully support folks like her in the voice that she has. She said about Candace Owens, she says, Candace is someone I hold very different opinions from, but I still believe she has a right to share her opinion as much as everyone else. Dogpiling is wrong. Now, I don't want to talk about specifics because even up to this week, I continue to have people either implying things about me or flat out saying my name in negative ways. And it really doesn't do me any justice to cover that type of side story, but mainly because I'm busy and I'm thriving. And when you're busy and thriving, you don't have time to look in your rear view mirror. And I think Katie, without a crystal ball, understands that. And yet some people create their own ecosystem of content through how they can, I don't know, really place themselves amongst others. Like they're so worried about the standing of who's talking about who. And, I look at YouTube and content creating as just a giant buffet. If you don't like what I'm serving, there's somebody right next to me. We're all behind the sneeze guard doing our best. This week, actually, I've been in Florida on my annual baseball trip I do with a sort of amateur baseball league. And it's a very interesting metaphor for like living your life, right? I never thought I'd be able to play baseball at the age of 40. You just hear, that you retire at a certain age, usually most people after high school. Well, I've actually had the pleasure of playing with a former Major League Baseball player. He has a World Series ring. He played, I think, 6 or 7 seasons with the Minnesota Twins and other teams, and he still gets out there and chucks the ball and sweats and grunts and does what he loves. A boys' game or girls' game, right? And we actually got the chance to play at the complex where the Boston Red Sox play, my childhood and favorite team that I root for. And one of the monuments that they have there is to Ted Williams. He was an American hero. He fought for the United States in a war while also being a Major League Baseball player, and he holds the highest batting average. He has the highest single season batting average of 406, and his lifetime batting average is unbelievable. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Ted Williams, aka Teddy Ballgame. Well, when you look at Ted Williams, what he's known for is his batting average. He's not the home run leader, the RBI leader. He hasn't played in the most consecutive games. The thing that he will always be remembered for is that every game he showed up, he hit the ball more often than not, the highest amount of time of anyone who's ever played the game. So for me, I would love to be judged as someone with a high batting average. Not to say I'm always going to get it right. Not to say I'm not going to have mistakes or lazy days or days where I'm not on my best, but I want my batting average to be at that level where people look at that and go, he did okay. And I think, with all of this infighting that we see that happens amongst content creators, which standard stuff, it's happened in the 15 years I've done stand-up comedy. Comedians are always wrecking each other. Mark Maron and Joe Rogan are going at it right now online. But when you see all of that play out, you just go, you know what? I think I'd rather my audience judge me on my batting average, not on how I could dunk on somebody else. That will be the thing that people can either F with me or not F with me, but I'll do what I can with it and I'll keep it as high as possible. So that's what I have to say about that. All right, coming up next, young mom admits she faked an entire pregnancy, tries to pass off a silicone doll as a newborn. We've got this story next. Well, as you guys know, we've been covering the Laura Owens Clayton Echard trial, and not only that trial, but her trial with Mike Maricini, and probably another one with Greg Gillespie as she tries to continue punishing these men with frivolous restraining orders. Well, this is a side story that just came out. It's been going viral about this young mom, and this, again, is super sad. A so-called young mom in Scotland admitted to bizarrely faking her entire pregnancy, trying to pass off a silicone doll as her newborn. Kira Cousins, 22, issued a groveling apology on Tuesday after her massive hoax was uncovered. "I'm so sorry," she wrote in a now deleted Instagram story. "I wasn't pregnant. There was no baby. I made it up and kept it going way too far. I faked scans, messages, a whole birth story, and acted like a doll was a real baby." Cousins managed to fool her loved ones, including who she claimed was the baby's father, into believing she was pregnant and had given birth to a little girl. In her bizarre apology, Cousins defended those she'd fooled into believing the doll was actually real. In everyone else's defense, the doll could move. You could change the facial features, arms and legs. I mean, how bizarre. And there she is wearing a fake baby bump. Now, we've accused Laura Owens of wearing a fake baby bump in some of her hearings where she had to meet with the guy she was claiming to be the father of her unborn twins. And yet here we have in Scotland, the girl at least admits to faking it, and we're still trying to convince Laura to do the right thing. Will that happen? Yet to be seen. Well, how about this ominous clip I'm going to share for you? Here's Steve Bannon. We're going to take a hard left turn into some politics. Steve Bannon insisting that Donald Trump will be the president again for a third term in 2028. I wouldn't even bet on him still being alive. He's an old man, but have a listen to this.
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started.
What a weird guy, right? This drunk felon steals from the American people, right? And that sham scam that he had. Do you guys remember that? He was, I believe, pardoned, or the charges were dropped when Trump got back in office, but he raised money for a wall that didn't even go to it. So anyhow, he says there's going to be a plan to bring him back. And, it's like, well, show your cards. What's the plan going to be? Entertain us. But again, nothing so far. Here, Fox News is celebrating Hamburger Helper surging in sales. Well, do they mention it's surging in sales because people can't afford to, eat better food?
And last but not least, one trend and true brand is making a big comeback as consumers tighten their wallets. And here it is, Hamburger Helper. The mix of mac and cheese and ground beef is seeing a surge in sales.
I guess we can remember that next time the government gets tanked by the administrations. Invest money in Hamburger Helper. And let's talk about the ballroom. We've got a ballroom going up here at the White House. I mean, the government shut down. 1 million people aren't receiving their paychecks. Medical costs are about to explode. But let's go do the Lindy Hop. Here is the White House press secretary explaining that the ballroom is Trump's main priority.
Not to my knowledge, no.
know. But he's a builder at heart, clearly, and so his heart and his mind is always churning about how to improve things here on the White House grounds. But at this moment in time, of course, the ballroom is really the president's main priority.
And you might argue, well, shouldn't his priority be living up to his campaign promises of lowering grocery prices, maybe making housing affordable, a concept of a health care plan? But no, I guess not. We just want to see people do the Argentine tango, in a place we're not allowed to go to, that being the White House. So here they actually talk about the cost of the building and how it has skyrocketed.
The president's cost estimate has changed several times. I think it's up to $300 million now. Given the nature of all this, will the White House commit to releasing all of the donors and how much they're spending and how much of his own money the president is putting on the line to this?
We have released the full list of donors thus far. Perhaps there will be more people who want to generously contribute to this project. And the president, yes, has committed his own resources. And when he releases that information, which I'm very confident he will, you will all see that.
We'll see a dollar figure from the president?
Yes, he will. And I would also just add the president has been incredibly transparent. I would reject any notion otherwise when it comes to this ballroom project. It's something he personally has obviously taken an interest into and has talked with all of you in this room many times about. You have seen the model in the Oval Office. Last night he showed that for you. But when this plan was presented and when these renderings, as soon as they were complete, the president directed me to come out here and to share them with all of you. I did an entire opening remarks about what this ballroom project was going to look like. With any construction project, there are changes over time as you assess what the project is going to look like, and we'll continue to keep you apprised of all of those changes, but just trust the process. This is going to be a magnificent addition to the White House for many years to come, and it's not costing the taxpayers anything. The president is privately funding this ballroom addition to the White House grounds.
And of course, that's the problem, is that it's privately funded. So who are the donors? What sort of carve-outs will they receive from the dictator-in-chief with their donations? And, by all means, I don't think we should have a ballroom private or publicly funded. But this argument that it's privately funded, it doesn't make it any better. And will we find out who actually, that's like finding out who donates to Trump's crypto coin and then gets government subsidies or tariff carve-outs or things like that. It reeks of corruption. Absolutely. And these companies, they are groveling. They are just groveling. Companies, CEOs, they're not putting up a fight. They don't have any backbones and no spine when it comes to dealing with Trump. They're just kicking the can down the road, hoping that they can get by with whatever carve-outs he gives them, and then they'll be back to, status quo when it's a new administration. So here on the top, September 26th, is the photo of the East Wing. And here on October 23rd, you see it actually is completely demolished. Folks, it's gone. A historic, White House movie theater, all the other aspects of it, gone. And whether Obama put in a basketball court or Herbert Hoover, who the hell knows, put in bowling alleys, the point is that Congress didn't approve this, and we elect representatives, from different states. We all have a voice, unless you are in Arizona. I think they haven't sworn someone in yet. We all have a voice, and that voice, votes on our behalf on projects, and we're not seeing that happen right now. So we are not currently, to be completely objective, living in a democracy when the person we did elect is not doing the bidding for the American public. Like I said, we won't be invited to this party. It's a party that we aren't invited to, as George Carlin would say. Well, Gavin Newsom actually made a pretty big announcement that they're now selling knee pads here for all the CEOs, universities, and GOP bending the knee to Donald Trump. Have a listen.
Will be seen on my Patriot site, new knee pads that I'll be sending out, the new signature series knee pads for all these CEOs, for the University of Virginia that I'll add to the list today, for bending their knee, for those law firms, the universities, media companies, as this guy's rolling back, rewriting history, putting us back to pre-1960s world, censoring historic facts. Wake up, everybody. You will
Wake up, everybody. Now, these knee pads, he says it's because they're bending the knee. Again, the idea that you genuflect. Am I pronouncing that right? As you genuflect to the king. But of course, the other reason for knee pads would be to fillet the king. Anything to please him, whether it's by sexual favor or metaphor. These knee pads will be of service, but I have sad news for those looking to purchase these knee pads. It appears as though they have sold out on the Patriot shop. Now, this is all a joke, and you might say, why make jokes at a time like this? Well, we laugh because we cannot cry, right? Humor is a great way to cut through the absurdity. So these knee pads, which it looks like they've went with the sort of wrestler-style knee pads here, signed by Donald Trump with his very thick Sharpie felt, have clearly been sold out from the official store. So, hey, you got a good little joke every once in a while. So, listen, and by the way, whether it's genuflecting or S-ing the D, this is one way to handle Trump. He loves flattery. I just think it's like, who are we really fooling here? I want to live in a world where we tell the truth. And with the First Amendment kind of at attack, they aren't necessarily trying to get rid of your freedom of speech, but they're trying to chill it. And chilling freedom of speech means having people second guess whether or not they want to share their real opinions about things. Well, I'm not going to live in that reality. I've made a pledge as a comedian to share my truth on my stage as I see fit, and I'm very grateful you guys have been here for the ride. If you want to donate to the channel, put some bread in the tip jar, you can go to patreon.com/Dave Neal, or you can be a member here. On the membership program, just as a note, what I do for the YouTube membership is I try to give some insight into how I create my content and try to help you grow yours. So if you're out there looking to grow your content, whether it be YouTube or TikTok, I kind of go over some of the technical aspects, like SEO optimization, ways to try to get your content off the ground, but more so try to inspire people to do and create things that they're proud of because it's meaningful to you, which means don't try to copy me, try to be the best version of yourself. And the video that I'm going to be releasing today for our private members does just that. It's about imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and the idea behind it is when you start creating YouTube videos, finding people that bring joy that you appreciate and you want to emulate, and making it yours. It's almost like if you're doing karaoke, don't sing the song the way Celine Dion would sing it the way you would sing it. Make something uniquely yours, and that's what the topic this week of my YouTube series is going to be about. So if you want to join over there, I think it's like $5 a month. Last week we weren't able to do the video because I was traveling. I've been on the road a lot, which is why my voice is both quiet and destroyed as I try to make my content with a baby sleeping next to me. But he appreciates that I can do this for a living, whether we're in a Holiday Inn or at the home studio. So I want to thank you guys so much. We will be back this afternoon, so we'll have more content then. Stick around for that. As always, I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.